With resonance, we didn't just want to create something that looked different. It had to also have the features. It had to be superior to the standard pump and reservoir configuration, the tube reservoir. So it had to be able to do not just single loop, but also dual loops, and also single loop with parallel D5s. And for this, I decided that the distro, or at Singularity Computers what we like to call the manifold, was the best platform. And this is where the dual-sided machining idea came about, and the mirror image that we have in the resonance dual. Because we actually started with the resonance dual, and then later we moved on to, we added the resonance single as well, but the original idea was just the resonance dual. So we have this thick section in the middle, which is actually first of all machined from one side, and then it's machined from the other side, and then we have the two cover pieces. So the back side is almost a mirror image of the front side, although there are some small differences. This bottom section is only on the front side. And the port layout is something that is extremely important. The port layout on our distro products, Spectre, Wraith, and Resonance, is something that we put a lot of time into. We looked back at all of the systems that we built, and I've had a certain design philosophy with loops since I started. It's just the way that I do things. For me, the best loop is the shortest one, the shortest tube route. And usually there is only one way to get the shortest possible tube route in a loop. Sometimes maybe there's two ways. But this is for performance. I don't like adding anything that is unnecessary. For me, there's no reason. It's just the way that I build. And so we looked at all of the tube routes that we've done, and we kind of realized like there is a certain amount of standardization that can happen if you're following these rules of the shortest and cleanest tube route. And so we took a number of different tube routes, and because we don't want to lock people down, we still want obviously extreme versatility. And then we designed the port layout around that, you know, using averaging, using math, using experience, statistics. So it's designed so that the front and top radiator can be flipped around either direction. And you know, the outlet is in the middle, because from the middle of the motherboard there are so many different things that you can do. You can go to the CPU block, the memory block, you can go down to the GPUs, single GPU, dual GPU. It really gives the most flexibility. And then for inlets, we have an inlet here, we have these inlets here, and that's not even including the inlets on the back. But on the resonance single, you actually have a lot of access from the back as well, which really brings about some interesting possibilities for loop design. Because what you can do is you can actually have dual outlets and go in parallel, and then you can go off into the CPU and the GPUs at the same time, and then you can come back from the GPUs into the inlet, you can come back from the CPU into this inlet, and then you have, you know, a full split parallel loop. And then you can imagine how crazy it gets. Like the possibilities, the versatility is just really endless, because like in dual loop mode, it starts to get locked down a little bit more because you just have one side and then the other side, which is a mirror image. But in single loop, both sides are used for the same loop, obviously. So it means that you can connect to the front or to the back so many different times. And then with the parallel D5s, you have so much flow that because they're on two different sides and they're separated, you can then do full parallel and still with one loop. So again, what I just said, you know, splitting to the GPU and the CPU, and instead of just having the D5s in series one after the other, they're actually spread apart a little bit in the loop, and that's the way to achieve maximum performance. So that's just only glossing over the possibilities with the versatility, and also because, you know, it's turned around the other way. So with a normal pump reservoir combination, kind of all of the ports are just across the front at the bottom, and then there's some at the top. But having this turned around the other way and being able to connect, you know, with 90-degree fittings and come in like this, it really allows for a lot more options. So we have the D5 pump top that we actually originally developed for Spectre 1, but it's been through many revisions since then. It is highly flow optimized. We did a lot of work on the fluid dynamics, so extremely high performance for the D5 pump. We have the Protium D5 pump cover. So you can see the reservoir here, inlet to the pump top, and then one outlet, and then there's one outlet on the back. Inlet, 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 and then this section is for the ports at the bottom of the radiator, accessory ports, and all of that. For versatility, adjustment was also extremely important. So resonance has a huge range of adjustment. You can see it has a massive range of vertical adjustment, so all the way. So what this means is that you can install this on any radiator. You know, you can put it on a 240 and then put the back plates at the top of the 240, at the bottom of the 240, and then just slide resonance all over the place. Not only that, it has horizontal adjustment all the way across the universal back plates, which are compatible with 120 and 140, so that gives you, all of the options that you need. So this means that you can move resonance across the radiator like this, and it even has a little bit of adjustment here. Now we only gave it 5 millimeters of the third axis adjustment because this is only for fittings. So fittings are generally in increments of 5 millimeters. So let's say you have a 10 millimeter extension fitting, and you end up halfway in between a 10 millimeter and a 15 millimeter extension fitting. So that's what this adjustment is for, is just to make up that kind of 2.5 or maybe 4 millimeters that you need just to get your fittings perfectly aligned at the end, when you're connecting into your radiators or whatever else. So that's really why that third axis only has a small amount of adjustment. Also because you don't really want too much of this movement, because really you want your pump res combo to be as close down to the radiator as possible, because you have your GPU and other components that are going to start causing incompatibilities this height. And that's also why we have this shape here, so that at the top we can kind of get closer to where the tube is coming back from, and just to also give the product a little bit more character. But talking about character, we always start with function, and a lot of the time we really don't think much about aesthetics. We just think about the features that we want, and we just focus on that, and then the aesthetics follow. So resonance also has RGB and UV lighting. The LED strip that is included has a set of RGB LEDs and a separate set of UV LEDs. So there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with the lighting. You can have the RGB LEDs kind of tuned perfectly to UV and the UV lighting running at the same time, and then it just gives you the most crazy UV glow. And or you could have like the RGB blue or violet, and it almost enhances the UV effect. So yeah, you can really play around with that combination of the UV and the RGB to get the best possible lighting effects. And the lighting effects are pretty crazy in resonance. As I said, we started with the dual, and then one of our team said, well, we really should do a single version as well, because not a lot of people, not everyone is doing dual loops, and of course that was a great idea. And we decided to introduce the single. The only difference between the two, the single is thinner. It only has 2 pieces instead of the 3. And there's actually a lot of difference between the two though for loop design, because with the dual, it depends what mode you're in. If you're in a single loop mode, you get the full flexibility, being able to use the ports on both sides of the manifold. But in dual loop, it's you can only come out of one side for one loop and one side for the other loop. But with the single, you have both sides all the way. So even more flexibility. Now, not all of the ports are on both sides, and the reason for that is, again, our loop routes, which are based on essentially statistics. So yeah, from the back of the single you can really see what is going on with the internals. With the dual, not so much, because the other pump is in the way. But you can see here from the reservoir, the inlet to the pump top, it comes out here, and the outlet, and then we have this other inlet down here. Now, something that I should mention is that distros are very different to fill compared to a tube reservoir. And this is something that we knew that people would have some difficulty getting used to, so we have a very detailed manual, which we strongly suggest that you read, particularly the part about filling. And I'm going to be doing videos and guides on this soon. But due to the shape and also the size, it's very compact, of the reservoir, there is not as much volume, and so there is a little bit more possibility for recirculation, but it's very easy to avoid if you know what to do. And it's just about using a fill tube, leaving the fill tube attached until the micro bubbles come out. And maybe it takes a little bit longer than a tube reservoir, but it really depends on your build and the technique that you're using for filling. It also depends what mode you're in, because there are just so many different modes. But you'll notice these shapes in here. So what these actually do, the flow returns here. This shape here pushes the flow into this shape, and then it recirculates, creates a vortex like this, and then it actually peels the air off the top, so that when you're in the mode where you're connecting back to this inlet, the flow goes like this, and the air peels off the top, and it comes out of this port. When you go back into this port, the same thing happens like this, and then it peels out of this one. And when you come into here, again, it goes like that into a vortex around, and then it can peel off out of either. So we have done quite a lot to help the air to come out, because we knew the difficulty with distros, because of our experience. Spectre is quite the same. They're certainly a little bit more, well, I wouldn't say difficult to fill, they're just different. And you really need to learn, the key points to make it a lot easier. But yeah, this is something that I'll be explaining soon.